And we are live. Another broadcast in the Roofing on the Rise studio. We are sponsored by Roofing Supply Incorporated here in the Houston marketplace. You can come and get your supplies directly from us because we're the best. No, I don't. Listen, I'm absolutely for absolutely everybody. So I'm here to help everyone. Um, we have some other sponsors got to make an announcement. We have West Group Public Adjusters as a sponsor now that are on the broadcast. We also have two other non-title sponsors that we will be announcing here in the next 2 weeks. I'm really, really excited about announcing the entire sponsorship lineup. We're going to have an entire new look to the podcast. So what we're probably going to do is kick off season 2 with a brand new look. So we're going to get season 1 completely edited. I believe, are pulling the trigger on 2 editors today that are going to be working with me full time here at Roofing Supply Incorporated. So I'm really, really excited to be bringing on new innovations and really pioneering a new space in the distribution marketplace with having a full podcast completely sponsored. And we don't have to watch what we say, right? It's an amazing thing. So again, shout out to our sponsors, West Group Public Adjusters and Roofing Supply Incorporated. Thank you so much, Darren Bro, Jeff Schmeckel, for putting me up in this awesome studio. This has been amazing. This journey has been something that I definitely would not trade for anything else in the world. Getting on to our broadcast today, we have an amazing guest, Todd Miller. Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic and feeling blessed and highly favored to be with you today. So thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. I am I'm extremely stoked to have you on. So do us a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. I am president of Isaiah Industries. We're a manufacturing company in Ohio. We manufacture what I call specialty residential metal roofing systems. So that means higher end stuff. We manufacture standing seam, but also about a dozen different lines of metal shingles, both in copper and steel and aluminum. So we do a wide variety of products. This has been my whole life. The company was started by my father back in 1980. I have been here since 1986. I think I'm just maybe can't work in any other industry. I don't know. I do think some degree you kind of start to develop a level of mastery the longer you stay with things. So if I'm here another 50, 60 years, maybe I'll hit that level. But cool stuff. I've been really blessed over the years. I also am heavily involved with the metal roofing's 2 major industry trade associations. I serve on the board of directors both for Metal Construction Association and also the Metal Roofing Alliance. So that helps me
Okay.
understand the industry fairly well.
Well, that's awesome, man. Um, I just joined the board of directors at Harka here in Houston.
Very good, awesome,
Really, really excited about that.
great way to
When
serve.
people exactly. When people talk about change and wanting to change things or be a part, that is the best way to start right there. And just helping serve your local community, and then like yourself, man, that is an awesome deal to be able to say, hey, listen, especially to a client, right? I serve on the board of these 2 prestigious organizations. Um, very, very solid. So tell me a little bit about what you do for some of these organizations, because some people are sitting out there. We actually just got done talking about it. So every time I'm on video, I'm basically I'm in viewers' eyes just going from one video to the next. So they're just seeing from one video to the next, right? So the last long form video was just about an hour ago. We were talking about some of these things. Definitely want to dive into it.
Sure. Let me. I'll talk about both organizations just a tiny bit. Metal Roofing Alliance is a group that was founded back in 19 excuse me, back around 1998. And the purpose of Metal Roofing Alliance was to do market development for residential metal roofing. So if you go back to 1998, we figure metal had about a 2% share of the residential
Yeah.
roofing market. Over the years, and I think a lot of this has been because of the efforts of the Metal Roofing Alliance, that market share has grown significantly.
Yeah.
Latest study has us up around 17%. So that organization, Metal Roofing Alliance, which is metalroofing.com, is really all about growing the market, growing awareness, getting more into consumer consideration set when it comes to metal as a roofing option. The other organization, which is Metal Construction Association, is a little bit more on the technical side. So that's metalconstruction.org. It's not just metal roofing, it's wall panels, it's insulated panels, it's ACM and MCM panels. It really envelops or includes a bigger group of metal building materials. But that group focuses a lot more on um, codes, getting
Mm.
codes rewritten to
Yep.
allow for metal. It focuses a lot on technical research. So it's much more technical minded rather than just market development minded, the way Metal Roofing Alliance is.
Okay. That's awesome. So kind of like you got two sides of the coin here. And you're working
Absolutely.
both sides. So
Uh,
that's an awesome thing. One thing I started doing here throughout the broadcast, as somebody as we can, I'll pipe in with whoever has commented. Sergio commented, greetings, amazing things that you are doing. Um, uh, I appreciate that, and definitely on both sides. I know every single one of our viewers. Reason why they're on is because the amazing things that they're doing in the industry. Thank you so much, Sergio. And Sergio, I believe you're doing some amazing things as well. So I'm watching. That's one thing. You're one of the guys that I watch on a daily basis. Um, so to jump back into the space of legislation and or code, I was sitting with a council, or well, he's going for city council, Houston, and he was in Congress for us. One of the things that he's going about trying to change is to the permitting process here in Houston. It takes way too long to get our permits here. And so, the people that are trying to do the right thing, a lot of the times now are not able to do it, or they're going to have to wait 2 to 3 months to get their permit through. And that means they've got a deposit check from a client, in a lot of cases, and those clients are like, "Dude, what are you doing? Where is my job? Where is my money?"
sure.
And even after following up so many times, they still are thrown into a what do you call it? Like a compartmentalized section of contractors that always screw people over. And they're not that person. What they're really trying to do is do the job right and have the right permits pulled. That way it doesn't come up in the future.
Hmm.
Do you run into these things? And if you do, how do you handle them?
Sure. So, we don't get heavily involved just because as a manufacturer, I'm not the one typically out pulling permits.
Yeah.
But certainly I hear stories from the field. And one of them I heard about just recently was in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, which is about an hour and a half away from us. But
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting. There, if let's say you're just doing a asphalt replacement of an asphalt roof, you don't have to pull a permit. But if you're going to replace that asphalt roof with anything different, such as metal or wood
Yeah.
shake or anything, then you got to pull a permit. And it's a pretty long, convoluted process to make that happen.
Mm.
And so, yeah, you wonder. I mean, there's always the joke that permits are mainly about making funding for the
Yeah.
city. And I'm not going to be against that. I mean, everyone has to get their income from someplace. But by the same token, you don't want to do that at the expense of delaying projects or hurting consumers by any means. And so,
Right.
one has to think that as technology grows, that this whole thing of pulling permits is going to be a whole lot easier. Interesting, in
Yeah.
Cincinnati, there was no way to pull a permit online. You had to actually go there in person to pull a permit
Wow.
too. So,
That's nuts. So, you kinda just touched on it, how, things online are gonna make maybe things make things simpler. That's somewhat, I'm not gonna blow the whistle on what they're looking at doing, but, they're looking at instituting certain programs that would, make our service people of the city, um, make their jobs a lot easier,
hmm,
right? Um,
that sounds good.
Possibly some accelerated programs,
Gotcha.
right? That would usher in a new age, if you would, with the pulling of permits. I think that I know that the way in which that permits are pulled across the country varies, but like you said, it is a way to bolster fiscal raising for your organization. It doesn't matter what it is,
I
right?
like the way you say that.
Um, and and so really what I'm and a lot of people in my area are looking for is more two-sided. Here's why. When one of these contractors, doesn't matter who it is, goes to a job site. Oh no, what happened? Oh, there you are. Goes to a job site. So technical difficulties over on my side. Um, and they run into these issues like uh, and we run into them a lot, right? HVAC pipes ran with the wrong flashings, not flashed at all.
Mhm.
Chimneys not flashed, improperly built, and these things present larger problems for the contractors that are trying to fix it. And so on our side, we're trying to make things a lot better for our community. We want to clean up our streets. We want to clean up the houses and the jobs that are done. That means we want to weed out some contractors that are doing shitty work.
Amen.
And to do that, you have to put in structure.
Sure. Absolutely.
So Ohio is trying to, or a bill is being thrown around, right? For was it Ohio? For
I
licensing?
I'm not aware of that going on in Ohio. It may very well be you're onto something I'm not. Ohio does not have any contractor licensing currently, so it's a good chance someone is working on that, and it certainly wouldn't be a bad thing.
I
Just the
thought I seen something from wanted to say I seen it on like sales talk discussion,
uh-huh.
um, or roofing and solar community. I can't remember where I seen it, but it was about laws that were trying to be passed in Ohio, and what the requirements would be for that contractor, for a said contractor, to become a contractor in that given area. And so the thought, or excuse me, the comment was made that it was less than advantageous. But yet I read it and I'm like, it looks fucking great to me.
Mhm.
It looks
Mhm.
like maybe if you don't know what you're doing and you're scared of it,
Yeah,
that's why, because
that's
you don't
right.
know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're not trying to point fingers and name names and say, "Hey, look, you don't know what you're doing. You're stupid, blah, blah." That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, look, we're trying to educate and push this industry into a better way, and we can't do that if we're doing the same things over and over again. And
Yep.
it seems to be a cycle, right? And we fall into it ourselves, cutting a corner on a job. You just can't do it, right? And so for me, I'm looking into the aspect of for you, right? You do metal roofing, so looking at metal roofing and the codes that come with metal roofing, um, what kind of things are you guys working on right now, ladies and gentlemen? We are paused. Not sure exactly what happened. Oh, and we lost him, ladies and gentlemen. It is a lovely, lovely hump day. If you are watching, we are live from the Roofing on the Rise studio. Today, we're talking about licensing in Texas. We're talking about codes, talking about a lot of things that are extremely important right now. Not everyone's talking about it. Not everybody's like really honing in on it, but I am. The reason why I want to hone in on these items, these special issue items, because if we don't, we're not going to make any change. We have to make some sort of change. We have to be impactful in our community and our states. And so pushing pushing for these rules, these structures is what needs to happen. Or else we're going to stay in the same circle, the same hamster wheel over and over and over again. And it just serves no true purpose. So let's see. Ladies and gentlemen, Todd is trying to get back in. So if you are in the audience and you're watching right now, and licensing and code requirements is something that you've been thinking about, pipe in the comments and ask a question or pose a topic of discussion. Would love to start talking about it. We're going to give it a couple of minutes, and then I don't truly have a lined out spec sheet about what I'm going to talk about because I don't do a broadcast that's just by myself. That's not what I do. I may do that in the future, but I'll need to have something to talk about. Generally, I have like an outline if I'm going to sit and talk. But anyway, we'll give it a couple of minutes and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, if you're watching my journey, you see that I'm doing a lot of podcasting, talking about roofing supplies. A lot different than what I was doing before in the roofing and construction community. I was a contractor for 11 years. Um, it really qualifies me to speak on the side of distribution because I know the pain points that contractors go through. I know exactly what you're going through whenever you pick up the phone and you call me and you say, "Hey, man, this is the issue that I'm having with my supplier. I just cannot get my supplies. I can't do this. I can't do that. I need my job um, looked at. I need an estimate. I need someone to help me. I need someone to listen to me. I understand your pain. So give me a call. My number's across the bottom here. And Todd, welcome back.
Howdy. I apologize. I'm not sure what happened, but
Oh,
I
you're
was
you're just fine. You know
down
what?
for the count.
What's awesome is people get to watch the journey. right? We're in season 1,
There you
and,
go.
and and nobody's perfect, right?
Things
We're not
happen.
we're not we're not we're not like some, uber perfected Hollywood
Life,
station studio, like, this
life's
is
all
raw, baby.
about how you respond to the curveballs you get. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Alright, so we're talking about, licensing and code requirements. I asked a
Yeah.
question and then it paused. What things are you guys working on right now with code, and or code changes that could impact your community?
Sure. So, one of the things that we've been heavily involved in is, obviously with some of the extreme weather that our country has seen, we're seeing some changes toward more stringent codes for wind resistance, especially in coastal areas. So, Metal Construction Association's been pretty heavily involved in that, just making sure that our industry is well represented, making sure that the testing is proper and appropriate for our products. So I'd say that that's one of the key areas that I've seen. There have also been out on the West Coast some code initiatives regarding fire classification and changes in that. So, part of what we do is, again, making sure that the metal is represented properly. And above all, we want secure, safe buildings. So everything is about not fighting the codes, but simply making sure that we understand them, and that the code bodies who are writing the codes fully understand our products and their limitations and their capabilities and so forth. It's kind of interesting as you're talking earlier. So this morning I had a homeowner send me pictures of their metal roof that was recently installed, and sent me a half dozen pictures basically saying, this doesn't look right to me. Does this look right to you? And honestly, it's a mess. I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah.
kid anybody. There's a skylight that absolutely no flashing. They brought the metal
Wow.
panels up to about an inch and a half away from all sides of the skylight, and then used about $4,000 worth of silicon or something in there. Just a lot of deficiencies. And I hated it, but I had to tell the homeowner. I said, usually when people bring me things like this, I'm kind of making the determination, is this a cosmetic problem? Is it a functional problem? And I said, sadly, yours are both. And, you
Yeah.
know, you feel bad for those folks, but I guess what I'm driving toward is I think one of the biggest things that our industry, the metal roofing industry, is challenged with is making sure there's enough well-trained, knowledgeable installers out there for our products. And so, as a manufacturer, you'd love the thought that, hey, I just make product and send it places and people put it up. But what I'm finding more and more often in our industry is the manufacturers are all developing pretty robust training programs to make sure that they are out there training people how to properly install the products that we produce. And I think that's a real key for our industry.
Um, Speaking of training, when you came into the industry, did you say it was in the 80s,
Yeah, I came in 86.
86? Was there any good training platforms that were out?
There really weren't. I mean, it was a lot of tribal knowledge. So, kind of a little bit of a backstory of that. My our company, when it was founded, was, as a manufacturer, we were national supplier to a lot of those iconic metal roofs that you think of, like the bright red Pizza Hut roofs and the blue IHOP roofs and
Okay.
Toys R Us and Dunkin' Donuts. So we were national supplier of all those. In the mid 80s, we saw that that commercial business was going to kind of cycle away and wasn't always going to be real strong. And so there were a few guys out there doing residential metal roofing in the early to mid 80s. There were some guys in Texas, a couple there in Houston, up in Dallas. There were some guys out in Southern California, some guys in Pennsylvania, of all places. And so what I did when I came into the industry was just go to those places and spend literally weeks with those contractors, learning what they did and how they were doing it. I mean, how do you generate a lead for something that people weren't talking about? How do you go in the home and close deals for something people didn't know much about. How do you install these products? And it was just a great way
Mm,
to learn an industry.
wow. So, I hear a lot of horror stories about coming into the industry, no training. Um, when you came into the industry, and like you said, you just kinda kicking and screaming, like, just trying to figure it out. And my so I don't know because I wasn't alive. I was born in '92, I'm 30 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Good for you.
and so I don't even know what it's like. I can't even speak on it of marketing or how marketing was done in the '80s, right?
Oh
So
man,
you were
lots
talking
of
about
old
metal
school stuff.
roofing, you're talking about something that's completely different, and you just touched on it, how it's not being talked about, people don't know how to install it, like, what do we do? Alright, so keep that same mentality here. Alright, now, how did a company market a product that was not being showcased on TV? Like, that was the thing, was TV, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Radio?
Well, it was all pre-internet, obviously.
Right.
People actually read newspapers back then. So
Oh, sh
newspapers and newspaper inserts. I know. Can you believe that?
No, I
Um,
just feel stupid, like, sorry.
no, no.
Oh my
Um,
god, this is great.
home shows, back then
Okay.
and were even a bigger thing than they are now,
Oh,
because
wow, okay.
home shows, in essence, were the internet for anyone who wanted to discover something new to do with their house. You couldn't
Alright.
go Google anything, so you went to the home show once or twice a year, and so they were much more attended. And you saw people, not just go in with schlocky displays to try to generate a lead, but actually go in showing new, exciting stuff that they could get homeowners excited about. So, it was just very different in terms of how you generated leads back then and created interest. Um, one of the things that newspapers always ran was a spring and fall home improvement guide. And so that was a coveted thing to be in because,
Okay.
that's this thing that people would keep all year to be able to go and see, oh, what are some of the exciting things I can do to my house this year? And
Okay.
so you love that when you could get into those home improvement guides. But it's funny. One of the stories we always told about metal roofing was, we were the product that people wanted. They just didn't know what it was yet. And
Yeah,
the internet changed all that. So,
yeah,
obviously the internet allowed us to get in front of people and allowed them to discover us rather than us have to be out trying to figure out ways to beat their door down.
absolutely. Man, so speaking of, right, like, what kinda when I know you cold called, right? So, when you cold called on a metal roof, what did that sound like?
You know, um, so one of the best ways to do it was always to focus on the in-home presentation. And really not a whole lot different than what we do today. I mean, you want to go in, you want to be able to have a solid in-home presentation that analyzes the consumer's needs, kind of goes through what do you want to accomplish with your next roof? What do you not like about this roof? What do you not like about your neighbor's roof? All those types of things, and then presents an option to them. And now we do that on, great platforms. Wonderful platform out there today is Engage,
Mhm.
which is just an incredibly sort of interactive presentation for a contractor to use. Well, we did that back in the 80s too. It was a folder with flip pages in it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
so it really hasn't changed a whole lot. Just technology has brought new, better, more exciting ways to do things.
man, so thinking about, um, what you did in the '80s in roofing compared to what you're doing in 2023. What's the biggest change that you've seen to the metal industry?
There have certainly been big improvements in products. I think that the coatings is has been one of the biggest advancements. If there was ever a weak spot with metal roofs back in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s, it was the grade of paint finishes that we were limited to.
Yeah.
In the mid 90s, we all kind of switched to the paint technology we still use today because there isn't anything better, which is called PVDF, polyvinylidene fluoride. Its trade names are Kynar and Hylar. That was a great game changer
Yeah.
because, realistically, back in the early 80s, if we were to be honest with people, and that's what we wanted to be, we had to tell them, you probably are going to want to repaint this every 20 years or so.
Mm,
But today we can tell them, we got you an initial finish that's going to be a 40 to 50-year finish, and then someone potentially could repaint the roof
right.
if they wanted. So that's been a real game changer. I think the other game changer is probably no different than it is for the rest of the roofing industry, and that's satellite imagery.
Yeah.
The ability to get job measurements has really sped up the sales process for all products.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's been a real game changer also.
So I know, like, when I used to estimate a metal roof, I'd get actually, when I did it for myself, I hand measured everything. We did have satellite measurements, of course. It wasn't as popular when I first started about 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, Now it's extremely popular. Now that's how you're taught to do roofing is with a satellite image, and people these days don't know how to actually go out and
Ra-
measure a roof.
Rate a tape measure.
Right, right. So, you know, I'm thinking back to estimation. Do you think that it is a crucial process to have a satellite measurement or a hand measurement, or is it crucial at all?
Sure. So our take on that is with the metal shingle systems, we work very well with satellite measurements.
Okay.
Because everything is standard parts, we're not dealing with any sort of custom parts where we need to know 100% certain that this is 87 inches,
Right.
87.75 inches. However, if you're going to buy a standing seam system that is going to be produced off-site rather than a site-form standing seam system, and especially if it's a steel system, if you can avoid cutting those, having to recut the panels on site,
Yeah.
that's a real plus. So in that case, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll use satellite measurements initially to help figure out the cost of the job, get a general idea of panels and that so forth. And then we will ask the contractor to go out and do site measurements before anything is actually cut. And again, that's in their best interest. Obviously, you can always make panels shorter. You can't make them longer, but the reality is, if we can get those spot on so that they don't have to do any field cutting, we just have simplified that installation process by 50% almost. So it's just a real game changer if you can get those cuts made exact.
Heck yeah. That's what that's what I was thinking, but we have a lot of viewers that I'll apply to. Completely, completely different. I mean, this is out of the ballpark, if you will. Are you a golfer?
I am not. I should be, but I'm not.
Okay. All right. Um, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Oh gosh. My life is largely work, to be honest, and I love what I do. But I'm married. My wife and I have a son. We got a couple dogs. I'm active in my church. They actually let me preach on occasion, so I love that stuff as well.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
but yeah, it's good stuff.
So, faith, it's an important part of your life.
It is absolutely no
All right,
doubt
tell me
about
about
it.
that.
It's kind of interesting. I was raised in the church, but I don't think faith really became. And I even went to a Christian college, but faith didn't become real to me till my wife and I had our son, and you suddenly realize I got a role to play in the future of this
Yeah.
person. And so that was when I started to take my faith a whole lot more seriously. And as I did that, I for me, I could see where God had been with me every step of the way. I just had kind of had my walls up. And so, yeah, it's become a meaningful part. My wife and I are heavily involved in what I call a downtown ministry in the town that we're in. We
Okay.
work with a lot of kind of marginalized folks, serve them breakfast every Sunday, have a church service, deal with a lot of folks who are in recovery. So I've got a real heart for them and,
Okay.
what their lives have been as they've gone through. And yeah, it means a lot to us.
I'm in AA myself.
Are you really? Good for you.
Absolutely.
Keep it up, man. Keep it
Yes,
up.
sir. Yeah, go every Mondays. This Monday, I had cigars with a client, so I'm going to a Thursday meeting, which is called Big Smoke, and it's a cigar meeting,
Oh
it's
wow.
a men's only cigar meeting. So, I'm excited about that because it's gonna be the first time, and my mentor's really or not mentor, I'd say my mentor so much. My sponsor
Uh-huh.
is extremely excited that I'm going because he's been just absolutely, like, pulling it's like been pulling teeth for him to try to get me to go to anything different,
Yeah.
and it's just like, when I find something that challenges me, and, like, the first group I went to, it really like, it did. It was, like, the starter, right? But it failed to continue to challenge me, so that's where I'm at now, right? That's why I moved to a different meeting. And so that thought is there that's like, well, what if it doesn't challenge me? What if it doesn't provide me what it was like? I've never had to get up and leave a meeting, but what if I have to leave a meeting?
Mhm.
A lot of these what ifs that are an alcoholic mindset is there already, right? That's one of my,
Yeah.
I'm going through my fourth step, so that's one of my deals. But anyway,
And
um,
those kind of bring up anxieties, I suppose, which doesn't really help
yes,
either. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, when I stepped into my first room, I mean, I had an anxiety attack.
Mhm.
Went
Sure.
out, came back inside. I was going for a reason. Um, I had to, it was mandated. And so I thought, this is so funny. I go I thought the 12 steps were like a measure of how many meetings you went to, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, so what is this like 12 meetings, 2 meetings a step? Like, what is it?
Can I duck out after 4?
Holy shit. 3 years later, praise God, I'm a year and a half sober now.
Awesome.
I messed up, but God has really been working. God works a lot in recovery. He
Yeah,
really does. And I'm excited to hear that from someone else
yeah.
that, recovery is a big part of what they work with.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, you know, my life hasn't been such that I've been in a recovery program myself, and I
Yeah,
feel blessed of that by that. But
absolutely.
man, I tell you, I've got a huge heart for those who are in it, and just love them to death, and going to be with them every step of the way if I can be.
Man, I have a friend. Michael Stearns?
Not ringing a bell to me.
Okay. So, he does like a joke every time he's on a podcast, right? So I got one. We just asked Chat GPT a great joke for a roofer. All right, why did the roofer go to work wearing only one shoe?
Why did the roofer go to work wearing only one shoe? I feel like I should be able to figure this out, but I can't. I give
Because he heard it was on the house.
on the house. I, I
Oh man, that was horrible.
I have played around a little bit with jokes on Chat GPT and Google Bard, and I've discovered they are not good at figuring out jokes.
I, you know, it is absolutely insane. The level that you can like communicate with artificial intelligence now is insane.
I'll tell you, if this existed when I was in college, I just don't know what I would have done.
I man, I know if I was in school and I had this, I'd be in trouble because I'd be going to school with repeated crap from the AI that they know isn't right.
I would have been too. There's no doubt about it. I mean, gosh, it sounds great. I went in and asked it the other day to send to write a letter for a particular purpose, and
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't something I could use verbatim, but it was pretty
Yeah.
doggone spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, uh for those that don't know, Roofing on the Rise, the name actually came from Chat GPT.
Oh wow.
So one day I had a lunch with Bill Walsh. Shout out to Bill Walsh at the Power Team. Um, and he challenged me to do some things. And so I started knocking away at him real quick. So I sat down. I was like, all right, listen, I'm going to start a podcast. I need a name. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, what do you think? She's like, mm, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's pull out ChatGPT and see what's up. And it gives, you can tell it how many options to give you, but gives me a wide list of options. Roofing on the Rise was one of them. And after a stringent selection process, we decided to pick that. Um, Roofing on the Rise, definitely the long form and short form content, a lot of how I chop it, not necessarily how I chop it, but how I'm trying to say this the right way. Okay, search engine optimization and search engine management is very important in posting things, especially videos. And I'm learning this from other people. And so I'm not good at SEO and I haven't hired SEO guys yet. So I'm using AI to do my SEO for me. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that I'm getting a better result from what the AI has been writing for hashtags and for basic titles to things, right? And I'm sure people know that it wasn't like some original title that I've thought of, right? But I don't care
There you go.
because you watched the video, right? So it,
Mhm.
it served its
Sure,
purpose.
absolutely.
The content got out. So do you find that one of the big things that is talked about is being original, being authentic? Do you find or do you think that using chat gpt or using AI is a way in which to be unauthentic?
It's kind of interesting. We were talking about this actually on our podcast a week or so ago, a little bit, and kind of touched on it. And everyone says, okay, it's going to AI and all this is going to take away from jobs and all that type of stuff. And I saw someone throwing around a crazy number the other day that was going to steal 300 million jobs, which I just can't.
See,
There's no way. But anyway, um, one of the things I said though, but it's going to create other jobs, and one of those is going to be someone to edit the stuff that it creates.
right,
Because I think most people are going to agree to just take anything created for you artificially and then just throw it out there without ever double checking it or editing it. Uh, would be the wrong thing to do. And so it's going to create other jobs. So I think that as long as you're putting your own touch on it and you're making sure that, I mean, I think all of us who've played around with this stuff said, goodness, that sounded like something I already wrote once.
right.
And so in that case, it is authentic to you. If it sounds authentic to you, then who's to say it isn't authentic to you?
Mm.
So do the editing you want to do and get it so it's feeling authentic for you and go for it. It's my thought.
That's a good spin to that thought.
Yeah.
Do you think that using artificial intelligence to train the next generation of contractors is smart, or do you think that we should continue to utilize sales trainers and sales platforms and or in-person training still?
It's interesting. So I give a shout out. I don't know if you've come across an AI app yet called Rilla,
No, wait.
Rilla. Um, so Rilla basically allows a salesperson who is in training, or even someone who's very accomplished, to use their phone in the in-home presentation to record everything they say. And then afterward, Rilla comes back, analyzes exactly how what they said, how they responded, and comes back and coaches them to be better at selling based upon
Okay.
AI. And I think that's an amazing use of AI
Oh, absolutely.
because you know every salesperson, you always you're new to sales and you're doing direct in-home sales, you do ride-alongs and all that type of stuff, but you can only do so much of that, and you got to get out on your own. So if you still have something there that's kind of coaching you along the way, I think that's a real positive thing. And and years ago, I mean, I remember back, yeah, years ago, salespeople would go in their home and their sales manager would actually have them record their conversations, and then the
Right.
sales manager would have to listen through all of
Yep.
those and coach them up. And it just was very tedious and time consuming. But now you can do that with this app, and I'm
Yeah.
Rilla's the first one. I'm sure there's going to be others as well. So no, I think this is all exciting, good stuff. Yeah, some folks are a little freaked out and scared by it. I'm excited by it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ignorance is probably the driving factor there,
Yeah,
not really understanding what the capabilities and or what it could do for us.
yeah,
Um, a lot of people, they're scared of what could happen, right?
right.
Um, Alex Hormozy touches on it, in a few different videos. I don't know if you've ever heard of Alex
No, I
Hormozy.
haven't. I'll check it
Pretty
out though.
Yeah, definitely wanna type in, Alex Hormozy AI and check out what he has to say
Hmm.
about it. Really, really good rabbit hole. I mean, you will go down it for a good hour or 2, if you're not careful. Anyhow, he touched on some pretty good things about, asking the AI the correct questions. Um, really, for a lot of people, not knowing what to ask or even being ignorant of the subject that they're asking AI about is
Hmm.
why they're not getting the responses that they want. So Chat GPT 3.5, Chat GPT 4, um, really big right now with producing content, whether it's short form, long form. I mean, I have seen people do screenplays directly off of Chat GPT, and then they go
I've
in
heard about that. Yeah.
and then change it so that it sounds more authentic. And I mean,
Right.
I can literally do this on my phone. I can do this now. So, thinking about AI, do you think that AI will be used in the manufacturing of metal in the future? I know it's already being used for braking, right?
Hmm.
It's being used for breaking and cutting. Do you think it's gonna be largely used to move panels around in a distribution spot, in a setting?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, no doubt that the
I mean, this
warehouse,
goes for shingles too, right?
yeah, no doubt that AI is going to have a big impact on state of the art warehousing and things like that. I mean, currently most of the metal roofing manufacturers are smaller operations. I mean,
Uh,
a typical metal roofing manufacturing operation, may put out 100,000 squares a year.
yeah,
So we're not talking huge numbers.
right.
So at that point, you got to figure out, okay, is it going to be cost effective? But no doubt about it, I'm sure AI is going to do a lot of control of plant operations and warehousing operations and things like that in the future.
Shifting from AI, do you, see and this came from a question, I wanna say Tim Brown asked about 15 episodes back. on the decline, on whether or not you believe there will be a significant decline of asphaltic shingles or asphaltic materials that go up on roofs in the next 50 years. So I'll repeat the question again. Do you believe that there's going to be a significant decrease of asphaltic materials installed on properties in the future?
I'm glad you asked that question. It's interesting. So, I think I alluded earlier. Metal during the last 20 or so years has gone from single-digit market share of residential to the latest number from Dodge has us at 17%. Well,
Okay.
the interesting thing about all that is the asphalt market share hasn't changed much at all. I mean,
Mm,
it's been pretty steady that whole time, right around 80%. So metal has actually taken all of its share from wood shakes, from tile. Polymer products are starting to figure into that mix as well. But it's interesting that even though our market share has jumped that much, asphalt market share has stayed pretty level. And so, what does that mean? Well, at 17% and asphalt is 80. If we're going to grow,
mm,
they gotta go less.
yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, certainly everything that I have lived and breathed in my part of the world for 40 years would tell me that asphalt has to lose market share. But I was writing something about this in response to an interview this morning, and I said realistically, I think if metal hits maybe a 30% market share within the next 20 years. That's probably about as good as we're going to hope for,
Yeah.
which is going to bring asphalt probably down to that maybe 65 range because I do think the polymer, the composite products are going to continue to gain market share as well. And certainly I hope they don't take that market share from metal. They may to some degree, but I think both industries are probably going to have to steal some market share from asphalt if we're going to grow. So time will tell, that's for sure. But there are zealots out there who say, I think metal is going to be the only roofing material in the
Right.
future, and baloney. That's not going to happen.
Biggest thing that I talk about on these episodes is mindset. Whenever you came into roofing, was it the first time that you were in business?
It was, yeah. I mean, I had been a little bit in the publishing business, but not very much before I came into this full time.
So what changed in your mind? What was the mindset shift for you when you went from W-2 to 1099?
You know, I never knew a whole lot else, and I had grown up in a family where my father had always been pretty entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So that was kind of the norm to me. My wife, her husband was, or her ex-husband, her father, I'm her husband. Her father was, thank goodness, her father was, entrepreneurial. He was in business for himself. So I never really knew anything else, but it's
Okay.
interesting you ask that because I often think that because I can't imagine, being working for someone else, as horrible as that
Yeah.
sounds. I don't know
No.
what that would be like. I I I
Yeah.
mean, my only other jobs were, in college, I did some writing and some things in the publishing business, but, that was a college job. I mean, it was part-time. It wasn't my life. So I don't know. That's just a great question.
Absolutely. I mean, so for a lot of contractors and or a lot of people, mindset is a very important thing. Um, and and it may be on a daily basis, and we don't even think about it. And the reason why I bring it up is one of my viewers brought it up. Mindset is a really big and very important thing to him. And I'll leave this viewer anonymous. And he watches these to get motivation. So I always try to ask about what was thought. What were some of the motivating thoughts that were going through your head? I like what you said. That it was the norm. It was what you've seen already,
Hmm.
right?
Right,
And
right.
so you didn't know anything else other than you needed to succeed and be a boss, and that's what it takes, right? And so you leveled up, you did that. You've been in the industry for over 20 years, and we're getting close to the end of this here. So what I'd like to do is out of your entire career, what would you say is the biggest takeaways that you would give to a young entrepreneur or a young person going into entrepreneurship?
Good question. So I definitely will start by telling somebody if you're going to branch out on your own, start out with a CPA, an insurance guy, and an attorney. Make sure that you're doing things right because you don't want to be into this and 4 years down the road discover you've been doing things wrong,
Mm,
and suddenly what you've been doing wrong forces you out of business. So I think that that's really critical. I definitely think determining, what your culture is going to be is really important. And I think a lot of business people will go into business on their own thinking, oh, I want this warm, fuzzy culture. I want it to be like a big, happy family. And I'm not knocking that, but that isn't necessarily profitable either.
yeah.
And so a lot of times see people enter businesses with this mindset, all culture and all big happy family, and then suddenly they realize they're out of business a couple of years later
Mm,
because they simply weren't taking it. I don't want to say serious enough, but I do want to say serious enough. Um, and so, you got to have that mix. You got to know what your culture is going to be, but your culture entirely, has to be driving towards something that's sustainable. Otherwise, if you're in it just for culture's sake, go join a social club. I don't know. Don't start messing with people's lives.
mm,
And you got to think about that when you employ people. You're messing with their lives. So if you do a business that messes up and doesn't keep them employed, you have dramatically changed that person's life. Now, that said, in business, all kinds of crazy things can come along. I remember something my father always said was, anytime you're in business and you kind of hit this point where you say, oh, we're holding our own, we're doing okay, we're holding our own, forget about it because the competition is going around you. You've always got to be driving to grow and to scale up as well.
I love it. Well, it has been a live broadcast on the Roofing on the Rise studio. Again, we are sponsored by Roofing Supply Incorporated here in the Houston marketplace. You can come and get your shingles at a really great price. I'm also sponsored by West Group Public Adjusters. If you need a public adjuster that will treat your client the right way and bring them back to pre-loss condition, give West Group Public Adjusting a call. And a big thank you to Todd today. Thank you so much, Todd, for coming on and sharing all this awesome insight with the metal roofing industry.
It's been a great pleasure. I really enjoyed it. You have a fun show, and I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
And I appreciate it, Todd. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. It would not be the same without you. If you are listening and you have not liked and subscribed, please do that. Again, it's been an awesome time. Have a blessed day.